You know, people are always looking for the latest management book to figure out how to run a business, or even a country. But what if I told you the ultimate masterclass on running a global superpower was written 2,700 years ago? Today, we're cracking open the imperial playbook of the Neo-Assyrian Empire. We're going to see how they managed millions of people across thousands of miles, all from a single city. So let's head back to 650 BC, to the magnificent city of Nineveh, and learn how to run an empire. Okay, so picture this. The year is 650 BC. You're standing at the absolute peak of Assyrian power under their last great king, Ashurbanipal. And from the capital city of Nineveh, he controls an empire that is just staggering. It's the biggest the world has ever seen. We're talking from the Nile in Egypt all the way to the mountains of Iran. This isn't just a big kingdom, it's the planet's first real empire. Which, of course, leads to the big question. How on earth do you do that? I mean, there's no email, no phones, no fast way to get around. How does one ruler in one city keep a lid on a territory this massive and full of different peoples? Well, the answer is they built a series of brilliant and totally necessary systems to make it all work. First things first, you have to solve the problem of information, right? If you don't know what's happening hundreds of miles away on your borders, you're not going to have an empire for very long. The king needed eyes and ears everywhere, all the time. And this is exactly how we got them. Now, what you're looking at here, this isn't some historian's summary. This is a direct quote from a 2,700-year-old intelligence report. Yeah, you heard me. It's a real letter, written on a clay tablet sent to the king, basically saying, hey, our spies in Kume haven't checked in yet. This wasn't just a casual network. This was professional, state-sponsored intelligence gathering. So that letter mentions Kume, which was what we call a vassal state. And you've got to understand this concept to see how the empire worked. See, a lot of the empire wasn't ruled directly by Assyrians. It was a web of smaller kingdoms that paid tribute and promised to be loyal. But, promises can be broken. So keeping them loyal meant you had to be watching them, constantly. And the kind of info they were gathering was incredibly specific. We're talking about enemy troop movements, especially from their big rivals Urartu, but they also wanted to know all the gossip. Was a local vassal king getting a little too ambitious? Were the trade routes secure? Was there some local squabble that could boil over into a rebellion? The king, he wanted to know everything. Okay, so you've got the information flowing in. Now what do you do with it? You need a system to act on it, a machine to manage millions of people, collect taxes, enforce laws, and keep the economy humming. You need a great, big state bureaucracy. And you can see just how organized this machine was by looking at everyday life. This right here, this isn't some royal decree. This table breaks down a totally normal private labor contract. You've got a regular person hiring a guy for, say, 9 months to manage a trade caravan. The job is specific, the contract length is set, and look at this. He gets paid in actual silver. This shows a really sophisticated, cash-based economy managed through formal legal agreements. And get this. Every single one of these agreements, from huge government deals to small personal loans, was written down on a clay tablet, sealed up, and then filed away in an archive. So forget swords and chariots for a second. This empire was truly built on a mountain of paperwork. But, there was another kind of uncertainty that could keep a king up at night. It was a problem that spies and bureaucrats couldn't solve. Because in the ancient world, humans weren't really in charge. The gods were. And the will of the gods? Well, that was dangerously unpredictable. So how do you manage that? Well, you do it by collecting every single piece of knowledge in the entire known world. For the Assyrians, especially for a king like Ashurbanipal, knowledge wasn't just, a nice cultural thing to have. It was the ultimate strategic resource. It was power over the cosmos, over politics, over everything. So this is the really wild part. The famous Library of Ashurbanipal wasn't just a library. It was a state intelligence project. Here's how it worked. Step 1, collect everything. Scribes were sent all over the empire to find and copy every important tablet. Step 2, compile it all, especially the omen texts. You create this massive database of every possible sign from the gods. Seriously, if a sheep was born with 2 heads, you could look it up and see what it meant. Step 3, you bring in the experts, the scholars, the diviners, to compare what's happening now to this huge library of data. And finally, step 4, they give the king a forecast, basically a data-driven prediction to help him get ahead of any cosmic or political trouble. It's incredible. So all of this, the spies, the scribes, the scholars, it was all centered in Nineveh. And by this point, Nineveh was the biggest city on the entire planet. This huge concentration of power created one last massive logistical headache. How do you feed and supply a city of this size? How do you feed the beast? And the answer, once again, comes down to their money-based economy. People worked for wages, and they got paid in silver. So a farmhand harvesting crops might make 1 shekel of silver for a month of backbreaking work. But a professional guard protecting a caravan on a dangerous journey, he could pull in 3 times that much. This pay structure created incentives that pulled people and all their goods straight to the capital city. And we know this wasn't some rare thing. In the ruins of just 2 private family archives, archaeologists found 21 of these different employment contracts. 21! Now just try to imagine how many tens of thousands of these agreements were being made all across the empire. This was the economic engine that fueled the whole enterprise. So let's pull it all together. You have a massive intelligence network, a huge bureaucracy, a library to literally try and predict the future, and a cash economy fueling it all. It is a brilliant, complex, interconnected machine. But when something is that complex and that centralized, it also becomes incredibly fragile. And the proof of that fragility is just shocking. In 650 BC, the Assyrian Empire is the undisputed superpower of the world, no question. But just 38 years later, in 612 BC, Nineveh, the entire brain, the nerve center of this whole operation, is a smoldering ruin, destroyed by its enemies. When the center finally broke, the entire system collapsed with terrifying speed. So in the end, the Assyrians showed the world how to build an empire on information, bureaucracy, and strategic knowledge. But they also showed us how fast a system like that can fall apart. It really leaves you wondering, doesn't it? In our own age of big data and global networks, where information is everything, what can an empire built on clay tablets really teach us about the true nature of power and control?